The fake Bhutanese refugee scam has been on the headlines with the arrest of a number of high-profile leaders allegedly involved in the multi-million rupees scandal. Such has been the magnitude of the scam that the House session that was supposed to discuss the government's programs and policies has been dominated by the refugee scandal. Even as the government attorney is registering the case against the 30 alleged culprits, massive speculations are made on the other political bigwigs whose name have also surfaced during the police interrogation. Good evening, I'm Sarah Sapsanama. Let's begin with the headlines of the hour. Cases filed against 30 alleged culprits, including 14 on-the-run individuals at the District Court Kathmandu in the fake Bhutanese refugee scam. Investigations to continue. Nepali Congress General Secretary Gagan Thapa calls the fake Bhutanese refugee scam a litmus test for the government. Rashtra Swatantra Party demands a fair parliamentary committee. Indian Premier Modi to inaugurate the country's new parliament building. The decision sparks a row. Opposition Indian Congress calls it a breach of constitution. And Team Nepal produced enterprising volleyball against India at the ongoing Kava Women's Volleyball Championship. India win 3-1. Kazakhstan top Group B. The Kathmandu District Court has filed case against 30 individuals alleged of involvement in the fake Bhutanese refugee scam. This includes former Deputy Prime Minister Tobadu Raimaji, former Home Minister Balkrishna Khand, Indrajit Rai, the Security Advisor to former Home Minister, former Home Secretary Teknaran Pandey, leader of Bhutanese refugees Teknath Rijal and Samsher Mia of the Hajj community. They have been charged for organized crime and crimes against state, among others. The District Court has also recommended for corruption charges against Khand, Raimaji, Rijal, Pandey, Mia and Rai. On Monday this week, the investigation team had submitted a report to the Government Attorney Office recommending charges against 30 individuals that included 16 in police custody and 14 other who are still absconding. State laws allow the police up to 60 days to keep in custody those alleged of involvement in crimes for investigation. The fake Bhutanese refugee scam has drawn political bigwigs into controversy and has been talk of the town for several weeks now. The police have said additional investigations on the scam will continue. Nepali Congress General Secretary and lawmaker Gagan Thapa has called the fake Bhutanese refugee scam a litmus test for the government. Speaking at today's session of the parliament that is dwelling on the government's programs and policies, lawmaker Thapa said that the fake Bhutanese refugee scam has generated significant public interest and therefore the government must probe the case cautiously and carefully. Thapa added that the scam will also test the country's judiciary. Meanwhile, Rashtra Swatantra Party has demanded the formation of a parliamentary committee to probe the Bhutanese refugee scandal, citing that efforts were underway to influence the case. RSP Chair Rabi Lamichhane flayed the government, saying that the authority has not taken any initiative to arrest political bigwigs, despite the names surfacing in the scandal. Lawmaker Lamichhane viewed that the repeated meetings of the top brass of the three parties gave enough room to suspect the government's intention in the case. RSP alleged that both the Prime Minister and Home Minister have backed from taking stern action in the case and have adopted a defensive outlook. RSP lawmaker Sumana Shrestha inquired about the resolution proposal she had presented at the Parliament last week concerning the fake Bhutanese refugee scam. Newly appointed Minister for Forest and Environment Birendra Prasad Mahato and State Minister for Education, Science and Technology Pramila Kumari Yadav have taken their oath of office and secrecy. Minister Mahato and State Minister Yadav took their oaths at the President's office in Sital Niwas. Mahato has expressed commitments towards zero tolerance for corruption and has said the ministry will prioritize production and export of herbs. Minister Mahato has also said under his leadership, the ministry will closely watch over industries that are operating against the environmental guidelines. Prime Minister Pushpakam Dahal yesterday had expanded the cabinet for the 11th time, giving it a full shape since assuming office in December 5 months ago. With it, the total number of ministers stands at 22 and there are 3 state ministers. Bara and Parsa districts have received over 4,000 complaints from victims of loan sharks. This includes 3,000 in Bara and 1,000 in Parsa and comes after the government called for victims to file their complaints last month. The government had given victims time between April end to 21st of May to file their complaints. The government has also extended the time by 1 week, based on which loan shark victims can file their complaints till 28th of May. Now, farmers in hilly districts of Koshi province, including Thankuta, have expressed grievances over lack of fertilizers amid ongoing plantation season. Districts including Thankuta, Terothum and Sangkhwasaba have received 610 tons of urea and 100 tons of DAP fertilizer in the past 2 months, which farmers say is far from adequate. The Department of Agriculture says the fertilizers distributed by the government does not even meet 30% of the total demand. The Agriculture Centre Thankuta has said it has distributed the 410 metric ton fertilizer it received from Salt Trading and Agriculture Materials Company equally to all local levels. The Agriculture Material Company has said it has yet to receive potash fertilizer. It's time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion.
Public Pulse.
The question is, why has the Outer Ring Road construction project remained stranded despite the lapse of 21 years? Your options are A, lack of commitment, B, problems with land acquisition, and C, lack of resources. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your option A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. Let's move on to the international update. The government and opposition in India have been trading blame games over the inauguration of India's new parliament building. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to inaugurate it on 28th of May. Opposition leaders have accused the government of constitutional impropriety by not requesting the president to open the building. They have also criticized the government's choice of date, which is also the birth anniversary of Hindutva ideologue V.D. Savarkar. Opposition parties consider Savarkar as a divisive figure, while the ruling BJP hails him as a hero. Leaders from opposition parties said the choice of the inauguration date was an insult to India's founding fathers. The BJP has defended the decision, saying that the new building was a matter of pride for Indians. Work on the new parliament began in January 2021. The existing colonial-era parliament building will continue to be used. As plans for the inauguration of the new building were announced last week, several opposition parties criticized the government's exclusion of Indian President Draupadi Murmu, the head of state, from the event. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi said that the building should be inaugurated by the president. Reports say the Congress is now considering a boycott of the event. It was among several opposition parties that did not attend the foundation-laying ceremony for the building in 2020 as it came in during the coronavirus pandemic. A 7-day ceasefire reached on Monday has brought the long-awaited quietness to local residents from the heavy fighting in the Sudanese capital. Even though sporadic artillery fire could still be heard in parts of North Khartoum and Durman, cities in Sudan appear to be generally in peace. The agreement, which entered into force at 21:45 Khartoum time on Monday, was reached at talks in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia on Saturday after 5 weeks of fierce battles between the Sudanese armed forces and paramilitary rapid support forces, appealing for withdrawing forces from hospitals, resuming service of public facilities, and facilitating the safe passage of humanitarian assistance and commodities for populations in need. Although the situation turned relatively calm, most shops in downtown Khartoum remain closed. Several cars passed through the streets only once in a while, and few people could be seen outside. In some residential areas in Khartoum, city waste were piled up due to days of absence of management. In Khartoum's nearby city Omdurman, citizens said for the first time in more than 5 weeks they could feel the hard-won quietness, but now the food left for them are barely enough, with necessities such as milk and eggs, especially in shortages. Local residents say the latest truce pledges could be fragile, but they hope it would last. For them, the current top priority is to arrive in more peaceful northern Sudan, safe and sound. Visiting Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin attended a high-level business forum in Shanghai and expected that bilateral trade between China and Russia could hit the $200 billion goal by this year and cooperation will expand beyond traditional areas. Chinese experts call this visit a routine visit whose purpose is to upgrade cooperation that will boost both countries' new development demands, especially as the US-led small clique ramps up effort to encircle China's and Russia's growth. The visit's aim isn't to ask for China's help, as some media have been hyping, the experts added. China and Russia moving closer on economic cooperation should not be associated with the ongoing Ukraine crisis, nor should be seen as China skewing towards certain party. Chinese observers noted that China has the right to choose who to work with, as long as the collaboration does not violate international norms, and such choice won't be disturbed by noise from any third party. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang sent a congratulation letter on the China-Russia Business Forum on Tuesday, in which Li said the forum acts as an important step to implement consensus of leaders of the two countries and that China is willing to expand trade cooperation with Russia as well as promote the volume and quality of the bilateral cooperation. Chinese Premier Li stressed that China is ready to strengthen mutually beneficial cooperation with countries around the world, including Russia, to develop an open world economy and high-quality cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative to inject more certainty and impetus into the global economy. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese met Narendra Modi, his Indian counterpart, in Sydney today to discuss regional security and economic ties, and also signed a migration deal to boost Indian student and business travel to Australia. Albanese and Modi said the two Quad nations discussed trade, migration, renewable energy and established a hydrogen task force to expand cooperation on clean energy. Modi told reporters they also talked about taking the Australia-India Comprehensive Strategic Partnership to greater heights, in fact, taking the partnership to greater heights in the next decade. Australia, whose largest trading partner is China, is seeking to diversify its export markets, including forging closer trade ties with India through increased cooperation on mining and critical minerals. Israel's parliament has passed the 2023-24 national budget, gaining Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu a political reprieve following months of unprecedented protests against his religious nationalist coalition's judicial overhaul plans. The spending package of 484 billion shekels, equivalent to $131 billion for this year and $139 for next year, was ratified in a final vote of 64 to 56 in the Knesset. The government is facing economic pressure with rising living costs and fallout from its now suspended judicial overhaul drive, which triggered one of Israel's worst political crises, drove away investment and cut growth prospects. The two-year spending package posed another test to the religious nationalist coalition, drawing criticism from the government's own budget division for increasing funding to ultra-Orthodox Jewish schools and seminary students in a series of steps it warned would encourage joblessness and harm growth. Family members of detained WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange were joined by hundreds of supporters during a rally in Sydney today where they demanded his release. Assange, an Australian citizen, is battling extradition from Britain to US, where he is wanted on criminal charges over the release of confidential US military records and diplomatic cables back in 2010. Washington says the release of documents that had put lives in danger. Assange's family told his reporters in Sydney they felt the tide had changed and that they hope Assange will be freed soon. The rally was initially organized to coincide with US President Joe Biden's visit to Sydney, which Biden had postponed due to an unfolding crisis over the US debt ceiling. South Africa's interest rates hiking cycle is running longer, with steeper raises than initially anticipated as persistent power cuts add to inflationary pressures, further straining households and businesses barely surviving in a weak economy. The South African Reserve Bank, SARB, facing the dilemma of keeping a lid on inflation by raising rates without stifling already slow economic growth, has hiked its repo rate by 425 basis points since November 2021, but inflation continues to run hot. Even before the power crisis deepened towards the end of 2022, South Africans were already under pressure from rising prices on the back of, in fact, global factors that had disrupted supply chains, including the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine. Annual consumer price inflation struck a 13-year high of 7.8% in July 2022. CPI stood at 7.1% in March, remaining above the central bank's target range of 3 to 6%. In January 2023, most economists saw no further monetary policy tightening beyond that month in anticipation of slower inflation, but that prediction did not materialize. The SARB again raised rates in March with a higher than expected 50 basis points to 7.75%. The next rates decision is tomorrow, and the market consensus is for a 25 basis points increase. Some economists forecast a steeper hike. Welcome back. It's time now for the sports update.
Sports news.
Team Nepal produced an exciting game of volleyball against their much fancied opponents India at the ongoing Kava Women's Volleyball Championship. Nepali girls began the match hesitantly as they initially found the going tough against India, who are one of the title contenders. Nepal surrendered the first set 25-12. However, they made a valiant effort to come back into the match from the second set. The second set proved much competitive as they lost 26-24. Despite the loss, Team Nepal were slowly gaining their confidence, which made them clinch the third set 25-21. In the fourth set, Nepal dominated the early proceedings, remaining in the lead. However, they faltered towards the end of the fourth set through some unforced errors as they lost the set 25-21. Both India and Nepal had already qualified for the semi-finals. The win today means that India will top Group A, followed by Nepal in the second position. India will now take on Uzbekistan in the first semi-final, while Nepal are pitted against Kazakhstan in the other semi-final. And earlier today, Kazakhstan topped Group B as they registered a competitive 4-set victory over Uzbekistan. In the match played at Dashut Stadium's covered hall, Kazakhstan made the comeback after losing the first set. The first set lasted for about 30 minutes as Uzbekistan pocketed the set 26-24. Kazakhstan made a strong comeback into the match as they won the 3 consecutive sets to win 4-1 to top Group B. Kazakhstan won the 3 sets 25-16, 25-11 and 25-18. Uzbekistan have entered the semi-finals as Group B runners-up. That is all for the moment. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.